order of the, I almost said Dodge County, City of Stoughton Finance Committee. We do have all members present, and the meeting was properly noticed. Anyone for public comment? Seeing none, we'll go on. Got a few things in communications. First one is an update on general transportation aids calculation. Found a small oops that we've been over-reporting expenses for administration of the or the Public Works Department in the wrong area. If we had been doing it based upon last year's numbers, we would have gotten about $23,000 more in income than we should have. Now, considering it's the average of the past 6 years, it's going to take a while to build up to that number, and with construction costs increase, the GTA is going to go up. But I'm just kind of bringing it to your attention just so you know about it, and between myself and the auditors, we're making the correction to make sure we do it correct going forward. Any questions on that?
And that was mostly because it just wasn't certain people's time wasn't recorded in a certain
Correct.
area. Okay.
Portion of Brett Haber's time was going to street construction when it should have been going to street administration.
Got it.
Same thing with the office manager position.
Okay.
And the instructions for Form C are very specific, that one's an allowable cost for GTA, general transportation aids. Any other questions? Okay, next item on there, believe it or not, Department of Transportation actually finished the 2017 audit of the Shared Ride Services program. The majority of the items there are findings about internal controls, but it all relates to the vendor we had before running Inc. It's kind of a moot point. Bottom line is we may potentially have a $2,400 clawback or chargeback from 2017 that we may get in the next year or so, but the fund has enough fund balance that they can absorb that. Any questions at all on that?
Is that usual for them to have that much of a delay, or do you know? I don't know if you've been involved with this sort of funding before.
I know, well, not specifically for this type of grant, but I know it does take a while for DOT because a lot of programs take 2-3 years for all vendor invoices to come through. And talking with Baker Tilly, our outside auditors, they indicated, 5 to 6 years is the normal clawback time. So,
Jeepers.
Yeah, if I was the state, I'd try and get a little bit more caught up, but I'm not Department of Transportation.
That's worse off than I ordered some filters for work in 2021, and they just showed up.
You still have the piece of equipment that the filters go in?
Fortunately, I do, but it took me a while to remember, like, I think these went to the wrong person. They're like, no, you ordered those in 21. Good thing I didn't really need them at that, like, now.
Yeah, that was only probably 20 months ago or so when you ordered it.
Big deal. Crazy.
Okay. The next item we've got is the PCB class settlement. We actually got about $22,400 in as our portion of the settlement. It was something that the council talked about, just looking back here, sometime last summer, the council, working with the city attorney, talked about the possible routes to go forward, and the council decided to go forward. Based upon the limited documentation that I saw, it relates to stormwater utility and sewers, so I arbitrarily split the amounts 50-50 between those two funds. If we're going to get any more, I don't know, but I'll take 22,000 when I'm not expecting it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice check.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any other questions anybody might have? Okay. Next one is just the compliance report. By April 30th of each year, we've got to submit the ARPA funding, or in this case, it's state and local fiscal recovery funds portion of the ARPA funds. So this is just the report telling everything that had been approved by council at the time and paid out. So nothing really to go over here unless you folks have any questions. Okay, that ends the communications. Does any of the alders have any other communications? Okay. Well, next, election of committee chair and vice chair. So I will take nominations for chair. Lisa?
I would nominate Brett Schumacher to continue as chair if he's willing.
Second.
Lisa and Greg. Any other nominations?
Move the nominations be closed.
Okay. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? That passed 7-0. Brett, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for
Thank
the
you.
for the
You're
confidence.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say we have to do vice chair, don't we?
All right.
Yes, we do have to vote on vice chair, yeah.
Yep. So I would open up the floor for nomination for vice chair.
I nominate Lisa.
Lisa, is there a second on that one?
Second.
Second by Ozzy. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Third time, any other nomination? All right. All in favor of Lisa for vice chair, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed? Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Gives you something to do, Lisa.
Does give me something to do sometimes. Pay attention.
All right, we've got our slate of reports in there then, Dave.
I'm just going to highlight the reports that I wanted to bring something up to you. Otherwise, there's nothing else that I wanted to highlight. If you go to the cash and investments account, which is the second report, cash summary by fund, I've started printing the detail by fund as we potentially get into more investments. This will tell you, whether we've got the monies in CDs or mutual funds or whatever the case may be. So right now it's pretty plain, but just to explain why you're seeing more detail than you saw in the past. Any question on that particular report?
No, I did wonder where you were going with having all the extra detail in there, but
Right, yep. There's a method behind the madness.
okay, that's good.
Then we're going to skip to later down in the reports, into the revenue expenditure reports. Finance Department, I've got a small surplus of about $3,500 at the end of March. So keeping things in line there. Shared ride services, right now we've got a $43,000 deficit, but the state only pays twice a year on that, so I'm not concerned with that there. Nothing really to report on the RDA at all. I did have in the Common Council budget, you could see one new department on there for the DEI task force based upon some action recently taken at council. So that's why you'll see that activity. And something new that I've added now that the council has started making some decisions on ARPA, I'm starting to put the ARPA accounting fund 254 for the ARPA fund into the packet. So although we've got the ambulance in there and the Stoughton Area Community Foundation in there for the budget, nothing's been expended yet. So you'll start seeing that report every month.
That'll be handy in order to keep tabs on that, and then everybody knows where we're at with it, so.
Right. And the resolutions that you're going to see tonight, at the top section of the resolutions, it also details out what we've been spending. So there'll be lots of places for people to look to see where we're at. Other than that, I didn't have anything I thought I should highlight in the reports. Any questions on anyone that I've talked about or any of the reports in particular?
I was looking at one in the, I think in the check reconciliation, and in our bunch of outstanding checks, and I mean, I know we always, there's always ones that just haven't been acted upon, but I did see that we had quite a number of them from this Three Rivers Billing Incorporated, and I mean, it's like $12,000-ish. I think we had 4 of them that are sitting uncashed, but.
Three Rivers Billing is actually the company we use for the EMS accounting.
Okay.
I don't specifically know why they haven't cashed them yet, but we can look into that if you want us to.
It was just one of those, like, that's the only one that I saw on there that was, like, repeated, and, I mean, unless they're just behind on reporting, but it should show that they've cashed them. But.
Well, they could be behind just because, just like everybody else, they're going through year end.
Yeah.
They probably have multiple clients that they're working with and the auditors, so current year may be sitting a little while.
Right, because I'm used to seeing like 1 or 2 in there, but just to have seen 4 on there, seemed kind of unusual.
What I'll do is I'll look specifically for them on the April report, and if there's still a number of them outstanding, that's when we'll kind of dig into it.
Sure. That was all I had of notes for. Anybody else have any on the reports? All right, no questions on reports, then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the April 11th meeting.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Greg, second by Ozzy. Any edits or questions on the minutes from that meeting? Seeing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, minutes are accepted. Next bit up is a resolution to amend the 2023 adopted budget to provide the ARPA funds for Stoughton Neighborhood Free Health Clinic.
As you will probably remember, the Council of the Whole did a number of recommendations to the council for use of ARPA funds. This is to actually amend the budget, assuming council approves it, to pay out these ARPA funds. The format of all the resolutions is kind of the same, where the beginning number just shows everything that's been approved to date, and then the second part talks about each individual resolution. So I guess I'm going to leave that. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask.
No, because that one's gone through committee of the whole, so most of us have seen it,
Correct.
talked about it.
Yeah, this is just dotting the i's and crossing the t's.
Yep. Dave or Ozzy, any questions on these? We've had eyes on them a few times already, so,
No, they're pretty self-explanatory, I thought.
yep.
I'd move to recommend the council.
All right. Moved by Greg. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Second by Ozzy. Anybody have any further questions or anything for this resolution? Seeing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, resolution will recommend to council. Next up is a resolution similar for amending adopted budget for ARPA funds for Stoughton Area Resource Team, START team.
I had a couple
Yep.
things on this one. So I did notice at the bottom of the resolution, I'm guessing it's a typo. It says 20,000 as opposed to, I think it's 25 at the top. But where it says under the account number, it's got 20,000.
Yes, you're correct. I'll have to fix that.
And they're not on by chance, are they? There's not a representative on, are they?
I do not see anybody.
Well, and I wish I'd have thought of this shortly after committee of the whole, but I'm less familiar with START, so maybe somebody here knows more about it, but I looked at I looked online because I wanted to try to learn a little bit more about it. And their annual report, it's a little bit sparse, but they had over 321,000, and they said they spent 96,497 on direct services, so I just was curious about, but it sounds like we're probably not gonna get that answered. And maybe somebody here knows kind of,
Can talk a little bit about the organization. They do have 2 employees. One is full-time, the director, and the other is part-time, and they both do kind of social work, wraparound services, especially for those in the Stoughton School District. So they help families and individuals as well if they have a situation where they need, a short-term place to live during transition, or if they need, gas for their vehicle to get somewhere, or help provide them to resources like the food pantry. They would help direct them to the free health clinic if they had health concerns, if they didn't have insurance. So they work really closely with families. It's not so much seniors because the seniors are helped through the senior center typically. These are for younger folks, but it can be individuals or families. And so they work with quite a few organizations, and they kind of have a resource guide. They do get support from some of the local businesses as well. So if, for example, somebody couldn't afford to take the shared ride service, they help provide the punch cards for individuals so that they could get transportation either to work or to get, groceries and things like that. So they do provide an amazing amount of services. If you wanted to learn more about their budget, I could certainly talk to Laura Brand. She's the executive director. She'd be more than happy to talk about the services they provide. I'm trying to remember if they had submitted an application individually to us before we made the decision to work with the community foundation. Do you remember if they were on that list?
I
and
don't,
that was part of my question was, and I could be making this up, but I thought at one point they had hoped to did they want to build a small place or something? I just wondered if they had, because it's a pretty big chunk of money. I thought maybe, I was curious if they had it earmarked for something.
No, I mean, currently they were at one point in the senior center upstairs, and they kind of outgrew that location. So then they moved down into Doctor's Park where the dentist offices are down by Keegan's school. And they were basically partnering with the free health clinic down there. The free health clinic received one of the rooms as a donation. Those are actually condominiums down there. So they shared space with them. And then kind of coming out of the pandemic, they really wanted to be closer to the downtown. So they were able to secure some space where they pay rent in the Anderson Plaza. So they're in that building right now. The there is a desire amongst a lot of the nonprofits, the food pantries, the clothing, to have kind of a one-stop shop, but really nobody is fundraised or take the initiative to do that. Oftentimes, in other communities where they do that, it's through kind of a church group or a local nonprofit forums, and then they all kind of pool their resources and help share the costs, and that way, if you're a person in need, you could just go to one place and get everything instead of, going here for food and here for
Right.
clothing and here for social work and support and those types of, here for the health clinic.
Yeah.
We're not really, we don't really have anyone that's taking the lead on that. I know there's definitely some interest to do that, but, to this date, that hasn't really happened. So,
And I support the funding. I was just curious about, because that's the one that I'm less familiar with as far as their, if they had some long-range plans for those funds.
yeah, and if you'd like to have them come in, I'm certain that, she would be more than happy to do that because they'd love to be able to share some of the stories and some of the things that they do. They help people, with utility assistance. So, there's usually a moratorium in the winter.
Right.
So if somebody's behind on their utility bill, they can't disconnect. But when it gets to be this time of the year, then utilities will send out disconnection notices. So they can also help the families manage through that, do budgets, things like that. So she really tells, like, without naming names, she really tells individual stories about how she's been able to help people that have to choose whether or not they go to the pharmacy and get their prescription or they feed their child. Oftentimes, people are in a position where they have to choose one or another. So what they try to do is work with families to come up with a sustainable budget.
Sure.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, it does. Like I said, I was just wondering if they had a specific plan for the surplus. I support, the funding, but I just didn't know if they had a big picture plan or they were just trying to save some extra.
Yeah, and they typically have a fundraiser in the fall, so it might be that, they've deposited that money and they
Could
just
be.
haven't fully distributed it yet. I really don't know their cash flow situation. They have a board of directors.
To answer your previous question, no, START was not included in the list of companies or nonprofits that had come before the board or council back in August.
Oh, they didn't. I thought
They did not.
No, I looked at my notes too, I didn't have them in there.
Yeah, so I guess it would be helpful, just,
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah,
if
I'll
they
write
can't
myself
make
a
it
note.
even by Zoom, just,
Right. Even if they
Yeah,
can't make it by council.
I've listened,
fine.
so I went to their annual dinner fundraiser, and they told the stories there about a couple families, and then recently at one of the events, they kind of did an abbreviated version of that, and it's really kind of heartwarming what they do. But they're always happy to talk about that, so I'll make myself a note. And would you like him to come here or at council, or what are you thinking?
I think I don't know if they would be able to, because we'll see this one, this isn't on our time sensitive, this one isn't, so 2 weeks.
Correct, in 2 weeks it'll be before council.
Would they be able, do you think they would be able to have something
I
before that?
can
vote?
try, if nothing else, I'm sure they can write something up, but if you'd
Sure.
rather have them in person, I can request that. Do you have a preference?
even something written is
Yeah,
fine. Just like if they've
Right.
got some goals that they're looking at,
Okay.
or,
it's a
Okay.
good plug for them too, so
It is.
if we talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's another example of an organization that does terrific work in Stoughton, and not everybody knows that. And I know there's been more collaboration. There was an event this weekend that I attended where we're really just trying to share that with all the groups, so there's more collaboration.
Nope, I think that would be a good idea.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any other questions about that resolution? All All right, if none, I'll entertain a motion to approve that to council with the correction on the budget line down at the bottom.
Thank you for catching that.
All right, moved by Greg. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ozzy. Any other questions on this resolution? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that one to council. We got a broken record going on here, same thing. Amend the 23 adopted budget to approve the ARPA funds for the creation of a business revolving loan fund. That one out of committee of the whole also.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, all four of these came out of committee of the whole.
yep.
I would make the motion to recommend approval to council.
All right. Second by Greg. Any other questions on this one? And this one is for the revolving loan, and this is outside of the downtown area one. Is that right?
Technically, it's within the city limits, so somebody downtown could,
Could, right,
if they want to.
right. Okay. All right. Any other questions on that? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that to council also. Just gotta write a note down here. All right. All right, and to finish the broken record on this, amend the 23 adopted budget to approve ARPA funds for the tablet and laptop creation project.
What is that project exactly? I'm not familiar with it. Lending project?
It's basically in the senior center to have tablets and laptops available for checking out.
I'll make a motion to recommend to council.
All right, motion by Ozzy, is there a second?
Second.
Take your pick, Dave.
We'll give Dave one. He hasn't
Yeah.
gotten on the agenda, or the minutes yet.
Perfect.
So this one here was really to try to help folks, especially if they needed, not only a laptop, but a hotspot. So if they didn't have, broadband or access to the internet. And separate to that, just to let you know that Dane County Cities and Villages, I think I'd mentioned at one of the meetings, there was a presentation that I went to in Verona, and they had hired a firm from Middleton to do an analysis. And as part of that analysis, they had determined that there were 75 people in Stoughton that basically had, I don't remember if the word was underserved or their level of internet service was not at the standard. One of the things they decided to do was have this gentleman do some focus groups. So I replied to the email and I set up a meeting with them on Monday morning, and I reached out to Joyce Stokowski, and she agreed to meet with us as well, since she's been on the Dane County Broadband Task Force. So I'm not really sure what's going to come out of that meeting, but we're going to at least try to better understand the folks that are in Stoughton that are having difficulty, if it's like a pocket, or if it's spread out, or if there's any strategies we can do to help these households with their internet. So that's kind of one of the other conversations we had during ARPA, was whether or not we could do like a citywide broadband. And what we're finding is, to do that, it's expensive. But there might be some other ways that we can be able to at least, provide the service. Of course, the other issue then is the affordability of it, which is kind of a separate issue. But certainly there are some resources that were identified through federal funding that people can take advantage of to help offset their costs. and it's just a matter of getting the word out. So groups like START, that's another thing that they would help, communicate to their constituents. But this program here is something that we think will benefit some people, not everybody. The other part of the discussion on this particular one was a lot of people would just soon do everything on their cell phone. So, that might be more of a long-term strategy if there's something we can do with cell phone providers to help folks, get a burner or whatever they call them, to provide them, at least something, or to be able to go to a place where they can at least connect if they have a phone or if they have a device, whether it's the library or the senior center or our municipal parking lots. So those are the types of things that we're still investigating.
It's a good deal.
Who's gonna monitor or is the senior center going to administer the,
I believe Cindy and Joyce have been talking.
okay, all right. Yeah, we've got at least somebody in there that can do the updates to them or. clean
Joyce
them
likes
up.
hanging out there.
Sure, no worries.
Knows what she's doing.
She does a good job.
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve this one to council if there are no other further questions.
Actually, we do have a motion.
Oh, was a
first
motion
and
there?
second.
Yeah, you're right, it was Ozzy and Dave, right. Okay, we're in the questions part of it. Got it. Okay, then, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that one to council also. All right, and, all right, last bit, no, not last bit, second to last bit. A resolution to amend the 2023 adopted budget for Troll Beach inflatable play structures.
Dan, did you want to start on this topic? We can't hear you, Dan. Well, you're not on mute, but we're not hearing you. Well, I guess I'll start, and hopefully we figure out why we can't hear Dan soon. Basically, every year we used to fund $6,000 for basically a sinking fund for the various Troll Beach type items. But the Supreme Court back in '48 said we can't levy for a sinking fund, so we had to get rid of that. So the '23 budget doesn't have anything for the numbers, so really what happened is any remaining monies in the sinking fund at the end of '22 lapsed to the unassigned general fund balance. So in this situation, my recommendation is that the 5654 from the vendor be transferred from the unassigned general fund balance to rec programs for their budget to purchase these 3 inflatable structures at Troll Beach. So,
Should be working now, Dave.
oh,
Okay, so the inflatable structures, 2 of them are replacements for the obstacle course that we have there. And the third is a platform to help you get on the big slide. So if you're wondering which pieces of equipment they are, but I think Dave covered, we just have a sinking fund to replace these. And
we'll figure,
the lifespan of these things is, sometimes they last longer than other ones, so it's hard to budget for these. And the way the budget season works, the Troll Beach season ends after the budget season, so we don't really have time to, make an emergency request or anything. So this is probably the best way to do it without the sinking fund.
we'll figure out something to do in the '24 budget for this, but this is kind of a workaround, at least for this year.
How are we able to establish a sinking fund if that was 1948?
We weren't following case law.
I see. Okay,
For
all right.
A few years. 80.
And pesky state statutes always get in the way.
Right.
Well, this technically wasn't a statute, this was the court saying no.
Even worse.
Yep.
It's probably in one of those books back over there, right?
Put it this way, when the city attorney gave me the case law, it was a scanned copy from an old book,
Right.
so
Yep.
the internet wasn't too useful back in '48.
All right, unless anybody's got any questions about this for Dave or Dan, entertain a motion to approve.
Sure.
Motion by Greg, is there a second?
Second.
Take your pick again, Dave.
We'll give Dave again.
Yeah. All right, any other questions on this one? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed?
Curious, are you hearing us in the room now?
Yep.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, good.
All right, none opposed, then that passes. We'll recommend that to council. Next up is the resolution for amending the budget for the Virgin Lake Trail construction.
Dan, why don't you start with this one, please?
Okay, so this is the trail, Virgin Lake Trail project where we're going to widen most of the trail to 10 feet wide and pave it. And then the new section of trail from Roby Road to the 51 West development. And the budget numbers that were used, they were provided by MSA prior to the engineering being completed. We recently got a revised opinion of probable construction cost with updated numbers, and obviously that's much more expensive. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is the addition of a guardrail for a long section of trail that adds additional cost to it. You can see that. And then there's some minor storm sewer improvements that were needed on Buckingham. And then the additional cost, they thought there was they've been seeing $90 a ton for asphalt pricing for trail projects lately, so they bumped that number up from $70 to $90 a ton. So those were the additional costs, and then there's obviously some miscellaneous things in there too, but those are the big items. And then the cost for the different segments, they thought that they had segment A and segment C, which the new segment A is the new section of trail, and segment C would be the Jackson to Buckingham section, reversed in the budget numbers they gave me. So that would account for the difference in that segment.
Where's the trail gonna run from Jackson to Buckingham? Is that, is that the one around Virgin Lake?
Yeah, it's the Virgin Lake Trail.
Okay.
I just had a question. What's the projected start date on this, Dan?
We need to bid it out, so we've been working through an easement with a condo association that's between Roby Road and 51 West. And the easement's not needed really to construct the trail, but there's 3 oak trees that we're trying to protect. And they're going to have a meeting tonight and to decide if they're going to grant the easement or not. Either way, we hope to have it bid out in a couple weeks, and then the construction for the new section of trail would happen after July 1st because of the Roby Road construction project. And so it'd be most likely like a late summer type of construction, early fall.
So if they don't grant the easement, did you say it can still be done, but it has to be changed, the route, or?
Right, so the trail, the alignment would have to be redone for a small section, I think it was like 100 feet of trail. There's like 3 white oak trees that we're trying to protect.
Yeah, so part of the project is we're trying to put in a paved trail in there and then make it ADA accessible. There's a lot of topography and angles there. So, you know, starting from the beginning of the trail where the memory walk is, we'll be doing some things there and basically repurposing the bricks that are there into an area that's part of the area there, but it's not directly on the trail, and then doing the trail paving all the way down around the lake. So I walked down there one day with MSA. I know Dan and Brett and John Campanen, our forester, was down there as well to kind of get the lay of the land and talk to the neighbors and try to address their concerns. Obviously, we'd love to save the trees that are down there and protect them and not get too close to them with the trail. Ultimately, it's going to be up to the condo association, so we've tried to work with them, and I guess we'll see what they'll do. But, you know, one way or another, we'll have a trail down there.
We walk that trail all the time.
Yeah, it is. And it'll, at the other end, it's going to connect over by 51 West, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, the 51 West development already has the trail basically going to the end of the property line there. So we're working on connecting to that existing trail that was paved last year.
Yeah. And then eventually that trail will connect all the way up where the Stoughton Trailers development will be and go throughout that area as well. So that'll be a pretty nice segment there.
Yeah.
Be able to walk a ring around the city pretty soon.
Oh,
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we could use a little help from the state, but we'll see what happens there, you know, as far as being able to do some things, because we can't acquire an easement through eminent domain. That used to be the law until, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. They changed the law. And so we have to have a willing, you know, participant in order to grant the easement. So that's what we're trying to do here.
Dave, this one's got an either or as far as funding source in there. Says either capital outlay expenditure or by increasing borrowing or using fund balance as detailed below.
Well, it's not an either or. The Fund 410 for the Virgin Lake Trail is using bond or note proceeds.
Yep.
And the Chef Elker Walk Trail overlay, because it was not funded in the CIP, that is being used for fund balance in the construction fund because there's available amounts left over there.
Got it. Okay.
Probably based upon your comment, I should change that, be it resolved to say by both increased borrowing and use of fund balance.
Okay. Yeah, because it seemed like it was sort of an either or, but anyway.
Things make sense to the author, but not always to the reader.
Sure, no worries. Any other questions on this?
I'd
All
make
right.
the motion to recommend approval to council.
Okay, approval by Lisa, is there a second?
And that's with the changes.
Yep.
Yep, just with that language change.
I'm sorry, who seconded it?
I don't- Greg, was that a
second.
second? Okay,
Yeah.
Greg. Any other questions on that? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, we will recommend that to council, noting those changes in there. That runs us through our business at hand, and we still have our future agenda items that we'll keep chipping away a little bit at.
I do a little bit every time
Yep.
that I can.
Yep. nobody wants to add anything more to it, right? All right, thank you. All right, our business is complete. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Greg,
Second.
second by Ben. Any other questions? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody.